Can he regain that old form?
Comebacks are hard.
Cost him all of last season. When healthy, he is one of the best in the NFL.
They're talking about comeback player of the year.
He couldn't be more excited to get back out there.
There's nothing like a great comeback. We know some of the best games, but what about players? The guys who defied the odds and put up career years after truly forgettable seasons. Well, that's why we're here, so let's look at the best comeback seasons of all time. Peyton Manning ended his career with a Super Bowl title, but his storybook ending was far from guaranteed. In 2010, it was business as usual as Manning posted his 9th straight Pro Bowl season.
Manning, buying time, going deep, making the catch, Touchdown Colts.
But just months later, an off-season neck surgery cast doubt about his future. After 13 years, 4 MVPs, and a Lombardi in Indianapolis, many thought his career was over. Manning missed the entire 2011 season before being released as the Colts prepared for the Andrew Luck era. But it wasn't the end of Peyton's story.
I'm very excited to begin the next chapter of my playing career for the Denver Broncos.
Erasing all concerns, Manning started every game in 2012 while throwing for over 4,600 yards and 37 scores. The Broncos went from a 500 squad to a top seed, finishing with the NFL's second-best scoring offense and a 13-3 record.
And Manning fires. End zone shot. Stokely went up and caught it for a touchdown. What a throw.
Peyton earned his 6th All-Pro nod, finished 2nd MVP voting, and beat out another guy on our list for Comeback Player of the Year. Joe Burrow was a top draft choice, oozing with potential. The LSU stud burst onto the scene in 2020, throwing for over 2,500 yards and completing the most passes ever by a player over his first 8 games. But the Burrow Express came to a screeching halt after a major knee injury ended his season in Week 11.
Tough moments here at FedEx Field in Landover, Maryland. Joe Burrow has just been carted into the Bengals locker room. It is the left leg.
How did the 24-year-old respond the following year? Just by leading the Bengals to their first Super Bowl berth in 33 years. Burrow was locked in during his 2nd season, obliterating any doubts one dart at a time.
Burrow throwing the other way. Corner. Caught. Touchdown.
He completed a league-best 70.4% of his passes for over 4,600 yards and 34 scores as Comeback Player of the Year. The Bengals finished atop the AFC North before Burrow threw for 244 yards and 2 scores in his playoff debut. 2 weeks later, he led an 18-point road comeback against the mighty Chiefs.
And Cincinnati is heading to the Super Bowl. They beat Mahomes at home. Wow, Joe Burrow. No way.
Burrow gave the Rams all he had in Super Bowl 56, but fell just a drive short of the team's first ever Lombardi trophy. Garrison Hurst finally found his groove in 1998. After playing on 3 teams in 5 seasons, the vet broke out for the 49ers, rushing for nearly 1,600 yards. In the season opener, he delivered one of history's most iconic runs.
So now they've got to start from deep in their end of the field, and Garrison Hurst takes advantage of it. He takes the handoff, sweeps to his right, gets to the 20, he's at the 30, needs to cut in. He comes back up the right sideline, breaks the 3rd tackle, comes down to the 30, he's down to the 20, he's down to the 10, he's down to the 5, he's into the end zone. Touchdown! Touchdown, 49ers!
But tragedy struck just months later. In the playoffs, a gruesome ankle injury permanently damaged blood flow to his foot and effectively ended his career. No player had ever returned from such a diagnosis. But 2 years later, Hurst did. And he didn't just make it back onto the field, he produced.
3rd and 12. Garcia gets to Hurst, and Hurst is off to the races.
Amazing.
And they call the trap.
Garrison Hurst had to burst. I mean, he hit that thing and then had another gear.
The 49ers went just 10-22 in 2 years without Hurst. In 2001, they finished 12-4. Hurst amassed 4 100-yard games and more than 1,500 yards from scrimmage in a remarkable return. He was the obvious choice for Comeback Player of the Year. While we're mainly diving into the best of the best, there are several other comeback seasons worth noting. Before we carry on, let's name a few. Doug Flutie spent 8 years in the CFL before making his improbable return to the league.
Flutie, keeping, left side, touchdown!
The 36-year-old led the Bills to a playoff berth in 1998, earning his first and only Pro Bowl selection in the process. By 2013, injuries were piling up for Rob Gronkowski. An ACL tear was just the latest, ending his season after 7 games. But Gronk would roar back, producing over 1,100 yards and 12 scores in 2014.
Gronkowski, like a runaway truck.
How do you tackle that guy?
He was Comeback Player of the Year and an All-Pro. Andrew Luck, he missed all of 2017 with a lingering shoulder injury. He returned the next year with maybe the best campaign of his career. He was a Pro Bowler with nearly 4,600 yards and 39 scores. But his best year would be his last. Luck retired at the age of 29. Now, back to the main attraction. Kellen Winslow was getting quite the buzz in 1979, but the rookie played just 7 games before a knee injury shelved him for the season. When the young prospect hit the field again in 1980, many wondered if he'd ever reach his full potential. The answer? An unequivocal yes.
They'll throw. Winslow. There he is, and it is a touchdown to Winslow. Great catch. Boy, he's something.
Winslow broke out in year 2. He racked up 5 100-yard receiving games that season, punctuated with a 10-catch, 171-yard effort in Week 16. Not only was the season one of the best comeback seasons, it was one of the best seasons, period, by a tight end. The 23-year-old set then records with 1,290 receiving yards and a league-high 89 receptions, shattering Mike Ditka's previous high of 75.
First down, goal to go. Jefferson in motion. Winslow, touchdown, and Kellen Winslow has remarkable quickness.
Winslow added 9 scores and earned the first of 3 straight All-Pro nods. The Chargers and their Air Coryell attack finished the season at 11-5 with the league's best total offense. Matthew Stafford's body paid the price for shouldering the Detroit offense in 2010. In his second year, a shoulder injury held him to just 3 games. But the next season, the former #1 pick put together a stellar comeback campaign. If Stafford began his career dragging the Lions forward, he launched them directly into orbit in 2011.
3rd and 8, Stafford time, takes a shot for Calvin Johnson downfield. Megatron got it! Calvin Johnson all the way home! Touchdown Detroit!
Stafford started the season on a tear, securing the team's first 5-0 start since 1956. The 23-year-old put on a masterful passing display all season. Stafford tossed 41 touchdown passes and became the second youngest player ever to throw for at least 5,000 yards.
Stafford takes, throws, end zone, Scheffler, touchdown Detroit Lions! Stafford threaded the needle.
This kid, number 9, he's got a good future.
Got a chance.
That was a thread-the-needle throw. That was a laser delivered by Stafford.
In the season finale, he uncorked 520 yards and 5 touchdowns, his second 5-score game of the year. Oh, and the Lions earned their first postseason berth of the millennium. In his lone playoff appearance, he totaled 380 yards and 3 scores in a wild card loss. John Stallworth was a playoff legend and a 4-time Super Bowl champion by 1983, so when he went down with a leg injury at age 31, many assumed his best days were behind him. But the future Hall of Famer had different ideas. Instead of succumbing to Father Time, Stallworth delivered a career year in 1984. On opening day, he registered 167 yards and a touchdown against the Chiefs. That would set the tone for the season.
Alone with a play fake. Now coming on the near side, there's Stall. He's got it at the 8, breaks a tackle over the 5. He goes all the way into the end zone. Touchdown, Pittsburgh.
The veteran cracked the 100-yard mark 7 times, adding a 3-touchdown day on 2 of those occasions. Stallworth posted career highs across the board, finishing the year with 80 receptions for nearly 1,400 yards and 11 scores. In his final postseason game, the Pro Bowler snagged 4 catches for 111 yards and 2 touchdowns. Still, the Steelers fell to Dan Marino and the Dolphins. Now, for some more honorable mentions, a hamstring issue held Isaac Bruce to just 5 games in 1998, but he bounced back in a miraculous title run. The Pro Bowler racked up over 1,000 yards and 12 scores in 1999, then hauled in the game winner in Super Bowl 34.
And they won't catch him today!
Yes.
Touchdown Rams!
Benched for most of 2007, Chad Pennington left the Jets with everything to prove. In Miami, he did just that. Number 10 completed a league-best 67.4% of his passes, earning his second Comeback Player of the Year award. The Dolphins went from 1-15 to 11-5 in 2008. And can't forget Eric Berry's inspiring comeback story. The Pro Bowl safety was diagnosed with cancer in 2014, but he beat Hodgkin's lymphoma in a single offseason and returned in 2015 as an All-Pro. Back into the deep dives, we've got Troy Polamalu. The Steeler legend was coming off his second Super Bowl and his 5th straight Pro Bowl when the injury bug struck in his prime.
Puts it down, the kick is blocked.
Trying to pick up the fumble. Oh boy, and you can see Algie Crumpler came down right on that knee.
Number 43 played just 5 games in 2009, but didn't miss a beat when he returned to action in 2010.
Matty Ice first pass, and it's picked off. Troy Polamalu with the interception.
Polamalu flew around the field in signature fashion. He tied a career high with 7 interceptions, deflected 11 more passes, forced a fumble, and logged 63 combined tackles, including 6 behind the line of scrimmage. For his efforts, he was named Defensive Player of the Year. The 29-year-old would miss 2 late regular season contests, but returned for Pittsburgh's postseason run, playing in his 3rd and final Super Bowl.
Joe Montana could very well be his 3rd Super Bowl MVP award.
4 Lombardi trophies, 3 Super Bowl MVPs, and 8 Pro Bowls would be enough for most people. But Joe Montana isn't most people. After back-to-back league MVPs, a crushing hit in the 1990 NFC Championship knocked Montana out of commission and eventually out of San Francisco.
Here's Montana, long time in the pocket, but chased out, finally hit from behind. The ball's loose, and Montana's still on his hands and knees.
Right there as he hit Leonard Marshall coming from the backside.
Boy.
Montana missed the entire 91 season and played just 1 game in 92. With Steve Young blossoming into a star, the Niners shipped the 37-year-old to Kansas City. There, he was still Joe Cool. The living legend returned with a Pro Bowl season in 1993, going 8-3 as a starter. He threw for 2,100 yards and 13 scores while leading the Chiefs to a playoff berth. There, in typical fashion, he engineered 2 masterful wins, leading KC to their first AFC title game since 1969.
Back to pass, Joe Montana. Looks right, arches a pass into the end zone. Touchdown! Hey! I don't believe what I just saw. Montana Magic is back.
Montana would play 1 last season in KC before retiring as the greatest quarterback of all time. Randall Cunningham was one of football's most dynamic quarterbacks, earning 3 straight Pro Bowls in Philly.
Randall faking, now rolling with the football and being flattened at the 10, but throwing the ball to Giles for a touchdown. He whistled it to Jimmy Giles in the corner of the end zone.
But while defenses couldn't bring him down, a knee injury did in 1991. Cunningham spent the next 4 years just trying to stay on the field before retiring in 1996. The 34-year-old made his way back with the Vikings a year later. While he spent most of 97 as a backup, his number was called late in the season. Cunningham showed signs of life in a heroic comeback in the wild card round, but nobody was prepared for what happened next.
Cunningham gets it back from Smith, throws for Moss, touchdown!
Paired with Chris Carter and rookie Randy Moss, Cunningham orchestrated one of the greatest offenses in NFL history. The 35-year-old had a career year, throwing for 3,700 yards and 34 scores. He led the Vikes to a then-record 556 points and a franchise-best 15-1 record. The veteran tossed 4 touchdowns on 4 separate occasions and finished with a league-best 108 passer rating. Are you keeping up? Before we get into the final stretch, we've got a few more quick mentions. At age 36, Carson Palmer put together a career-defining season.
Palmer throws over the middle into the end zone, caught! Gresham, touchdown!
Returning from another major injury, the vet posted career highs with nearly 4,700 passing yards and 35 touchdowns. He finished second in MVP voting as the Cardinals reached the NFC title game. Defensive end Hugh Douglas played just 4 games in 1999, but he returned a year later with his first and only All-Pro campaign. Douglas recorded a career-best 15 sacks and tied the league lead with 21 tackles for loss. And how about Michael Vick? His career was all but over in 2007, but number 7 got a second chance with the Eagles.
Rolling and launching downfield for Deshaun Jackson, who accelerates, caught the opening play, and all the way for a touchdown!
In 2010, Vick looked better than ever, notching 30 total touchdowns, throwing for over 3,000 yards, and rushing for nearly 700 more in a Pro Bowl effort. Now, let's finish up this list in style.
Overtime quarter number 2. He's got time, throws downfield. Smith at the 45 to the 40. It's breaks free. It's 20, 10, 5, touchdown! Woo! Touchdown, Steve Smith!
Steve Smith was on a meteoric rise in 2004, coming off a dominant postseason run and a near Super Bowl title in just his 3rd NFL season. The Panthers' wideout was poised to be a true game breaker. Instead, it was his left leg that broke, ending his season after just 1 game. In 2005, he returned to the field, vowing to make up for lost time, and he was true to his word. The undersized receiver put up career numbers, earning the triple crown of receiving. Smith led the league with 103 catches, 1,563 yards, and 12 touchdowns. In his signature fashion, the comeback player of the year was the hardest working guy on the field.
DeLone fading back, got time, he throws, it's complete, first down, Smith breaks away, 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown, Panthers!
Wow. After finishing just 7-9 without Smith in 2004, Carolina returned to form, finishing 11-5. The 26-year-old again dominated the postseason, amassing 335 receiving yards and 5 total scores. In the divisional round, he erupted for a franchise-best 12 catches, 218 yards, and 2 scores against the Bears.
2nd and 8, blitz. Urlacher was coming. Smith gets behind the defense. There's a flag down. Smith makes the reception, a move, and he's into the end zone.
In his first 10 seasons, Dan Marino rewrote the history books, ushering in a new standard for quarterbacking in the NFL. Coming off his 7th Pro Bowl selection, the world expected more of the same in 1993. Instead, the Marino era came crashing down when a torn Achilles ended his season and possibly his career. But the 33-year-old picked up right where he left off in 1994.
4th and 5, shotgun. Marino throws deep downfield. It is caught by Fryer. Yes! Touchdown! Touchdown Dolphins! Marino to Fryer!
On opening day, just 11 months removed from his devastating injury, Marino was in peak form. He threw for 473 yards and 5 touchdowns, including the game winner against New England. Overall, the Dolphins legend produced his best statistical season in 8 years. He finished in the top 3 with over 4,400 passing yards and 30 touchdowns. In Week 13, down late against the Jets, Marino pulled off one of football's most stunning finishes.
I believe Marino is saying, I'm going to spike it.
We are seeing another spectacular effort by Marino, who fires. Touchdown! You know what the Jets are thinking? He's going to take the ball and throw it into the ground. They all stop. They catch the Jets napping.
And finally, we have the one and only Adrian Peterson. There may not have been a better runner in this era, but Minnesota was struggling mightily in 2011, and things went from bad to worse on this play.
Here goes Adrian Peterson. Good ankle tackle. Peterson is slow to get up, and in the first half, boy, that is a painful Peterson.
Oh, that's ugly. You feel absolutely poor for Adrian Peterson.
The torn ACL was a brutal blow for a stud back in his prime, but Peterson got right back up. Just 8 months after the surgery, he was back in the saddle.
Breaks a tackle at the 25, breaks another at the 30,
and he's loose! Adrian's inside the 30, 20, 10, touchdown! It's an 82-yard touchdown run by Adrian, the longest of his career.
Forget finding his sea legs, Peterson left the entire league in his wake. In 2012, he piled up 348 carries and averaged 160 rushing yards over the last 10 games of the season. In a must-win Week 17 bout, Peterson became just the 7th rusher in NFL history to amass 2,000 yards.
Handoff is to Peterson, gets by Raji, gets by Pickett, gets into the secondary, and M.D. Jennings forces him out of bounds at the 40. A 20-yard run, and now he is over 2,000 yards for the season, the 7th running back in the history of the league to get there.
In fact, All Day ended the year just 8 yards shy of Dickerson's single-season record. He added 12 touchdowns to boot and was league MVP, all on a reconstructed left knee. Behind his historic campaign, the Vikings went from 3-13 to a wild card berth. The NFL is the ultimate showcase for grit, determination, and downright superhuman ability. Every team, every player has its ups and downs. But these comeback seasons remind us that no one is ever truly down for the count, and that's why we watch.